Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with the final predictions episode of Survivor Season 42. It's kind of heartbreaking. I'm really enjoying this season. I know Alexa is as well. We are in such a different mindset. If you could have seen the behind the scenes during Season 41 and after Season 41 of where we were at and what we were thinking to where we are now, you would be thrilled with where we are now because we certainly weren't there last year at this time. I couldn't wait for last year's finale to be over. I didn't care who was going to win. Now, here we are with a very interesting final five. We have a lot to dissect here because while I think after last week's episode, there's some predictability going on here, I do think we still have a couple different variations that could go down. We're going to give updates to the prop bet, the boot list, the fantasy game, which Vintage Survivor is providing the prize for. They'll be sending that out to you. For the buffs this year, you're just going to kind of tell us which buff you want if you're the winner, and then we'll just ship it to your address. So that's what we'll be looking for after this. So if you hear your name in this episode, pay attention because we're going to be reaching out soon. Don't be like Claudette Proctor, whose buff I still have because I know we have all their information, but I have not shipped it yet. I need to ship it, and that's going to happen this week. So
how excited. I was like, why is the name so familiar? And I was like, I emailed her a month ago saying it was coming her way.
Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. It's coming. I'm shipping it this week. I get married later this week. And that means everything I need to do is going to be done before that. This buff will be in the mail prior to that. So that's coming your way, Claudette. But if you are one of the people who is up there right now, pay attention. Power rankings game. Going to give an update on that. It's very close at the top. Fantasy game, bootless game, and the prop bet game. That's 4 things that we're giving away prizes for, so make sure to listen close in case your name's up there right now because you'll want to pay really close attention on Wednesday night when we announce who the winners are.
Woohoo. So where are we at?
All right, so here's where we are. So right now for the bootless game, Moritz Lang has 26. Zach has 31. Nicholas Kaminsky has 34. Slick Slayer has 34. Jacob Meyer has 36. Jack DB has 38, and Rich, just Rich, has 38. I really don't think you can win beyond that because of how we're going to do, or because of just kind of, I guess you could, but those are the top 10-ish.
You need to be perfect, and nobody else can be even remotely close.
Pretty much.
One thing that we are going to do next year is we're going to make your names, or going to make it in the forms that you have to submit your email so that we don't have to do this again. We're obviously not going to do anything with your email, but this will just save us being like, Zach?
Yeah, Zach, where are you? I know, and
into the internet.
All we're going to do with your email is we're just going to send you a relentless amount of spam emails regarding Survivor Specialist memorabilia, how you can find us, all of that fun stuff. There's this really smart thing that BetMGM did where if you sign up for their app, all of a sudden now you just keep getting emails from them. So every time you block one of the people, they send you an email from a different person. That's and they awesome. Have like different betmgm.com, at mgm.com. They have different ones, so you can't even just like block all things associated with the email address. It's really brilliant and very, very effing annoying.
That's terrible.
Especially since I haven't bet on a sport in like 2 years because of my job. So it's very, very annoying. But anyway.
Yeah.
For the prop bet, let's go over to the prop bet. So for the prop bet scoreboard, in first place right now with 28 points is Nintendoshi. Second, Boring and Bland with 25. Kyle Johnson, was he a winner last year?
I don't know.
I don't know. 24. Nick Vitiello, 22. Ethan Wall, 22. Sheldon Coupon, who's been here since the beginning, 21. Andrea Sears, 21. Delmas Lawson, 21. Anthony Poole, 21. And Tammy Lee, not to be confused with Tommy Lee. Please don't go look up Tommy Lee.
Not.
Tammy Lee with 21, a bunch of people with 20. So that's where you're at. I don't know if you have 20, if you're going to be able to catch up, but maybe Marianne wins an immunity. Maybe you have the winner. I don't know. Something could happen. Okay. Now for the other two. So those are both our regular buffs that everybody's available for. Anybody can participate in. Now for the power rankings game, this is for our $20 patrons. I have finally been dethroned. Alex Trias is in first place with 109. I am in second with 108. And Forrest DeGroat is in third with 107. Jake Thulin has 105. Angela Rose, 102. And Victoria Fong, 101. John Millsip also with 102. Here's how this works for this week for the people who are submitting the power rankings, because this is how Alexa and I are about to do it as well. You want to get 0 points this week. You don't get points, you lose points. So if you get points this week, you're losing points. So how this is going to work is you want to correctly predict 1 through 5. If you think Jonathan is going to win, put Jonathan at number 1. Okay. If he gets first, you get 0 points. If he gets fourth, you get 3 points. However, you're not getting 3 points, you're losing 3 points. So whatever your total is today is the total you want it to be after Wednesday night's episode. Remember, keep it 1 through 5, 1 through 5, 1 through 5. So you want to predict however you think this episode is going to go, try to predict it exactly perfectly. Because if Lindsay, you put her at 5 and she gets 5th, you're going to get 0. If you think, hey, I don't know between Lindsay and Marianne who's going to get 5, who's going to get 4, and you put Lindsay at 4, Marianne at 5, and Lindsay goes out at 5, you're going to lose a point for that. And then let's say Marianne goes on to win it, you're going to lose 4 points for that. So you want to be perfect this week. Jacques Palami, $500 Philippine dollars with super sticker. So thank you.
Welcome.
Finally caught this live few watching all the way from the Philippines. Well, thank you. I feel like we finally have a time that works for people in the Philippines.
Everybody
in America is complaining
about the 8 a.m. Central Time or 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm glad we're making you happy in the Philippines.
There you go. Hey, that's it. We got them all worldwide. Our fans are worldwide. We have to keep everybody happy. Now for the fantasy game. So this is where the prize is coming from Vintage Survivor. They're just gonna send it to you. However, like they're just going to send it to you. They're not going to go through us. Like we've already talked to them. They're going to put a prize together and they're going to send it to you. So we'll be getting your address as well. These are for our patrons as well. I am winning with 77 because the person with the most points right now, which is Jonathan, not only do I have him, I have his points doubled, and I got to take one last dig at Alexa for that. Thank you for the 37 points and the extra 18.5, which is keeping me in first place. Over Vaughn, who has 64.5, and Alexa, you are having a rough go of it with 45.5. An intern-like performance, if I will.
That was an intern-esque performance. It would be, you can't only roast me, but it's most important to roast him. Yeah, that was a huge misstep. I am really hopeful that we never do this again, but it is really fun in the predictions, in the fantasy game for the three of us to just pick 3 random people to like poison. So I really like it. And man, am I going to reevaluate that next year.
I just found out that the money's in pesos, not Philippine dollars. I don't know what the P thing stood for. So
I looked it up. I think it's Philippine pesos. So we're both right. But
okay. Yeah, that's nice. I'll take it. Hey, money is money. All right. So then the people who actually could win this prize, though, from Vintage Survivor, right now, Alex Trias leads with 71.5. Still has Marianne and Jonathan left. Andy Vogel has 70.5. Ooh. He has Jonathan, Marianne, and Mike left, so could still make up the difference. Jake Thulin has 69.5 with Lindsay, Jonathan, and Marianne left, so could still make up the difference. And Paige Lauer has 69, but only has Lindsay, so Paige Lauer will not be winning, but we're throwing it in there anyway. Good job, 69 points. Annabelle Self with 68 with Lindsay, Romeo, and Mike. A weird combination. I don't see Romeo winning, but could potentially win this thing. So there's still a couple people who are alive and well in this, but Alex and Andy are definitely in the lead, and Jake is on their heels. It's going to come down to, does Lindsay do well? Does Mike do well? Or do neither of them do well? And does that potentially save the lead for Alex Trias? Because remember, it's just a half point for a day in the game. So that's all of the updates. Now nobody can ask. Now you know where we're at. And now we're getting into the final 5. But before we get into the final 5, Alexa, people are going to ask what we've done. This week, we had massive news, and I don't know how I feel about it. Survivor decided to not show us an idol nullifier be found by Omer and Jonathan. Omer had it in his possession. Supposedly, there was a lot going on about why this was, like how this was used to vote him out. I don't know how I feel about not showing advantages that were definitely a topic of conversation just because they don't come up. I feel like that's weird because then we're sitting here going, wait a second, we don't have all the information. I'm okay with not having the information for an episode or something. I'm okay with them not having all the conversation revolve around advantages. But it is weird that we never heard about this. Now we've gotten a lot of questions about the prop bet and how this works. I don't know how you feel. However, we have said all along that if it's not in the episode, if it's not on TV, it doesn't count, because we've done that for anything that would happen in extended scenes, or in secret scenes, whatever you want to call them. We've done that for all of that stuff. If it's not on the screen, we didn't see it. I understand that this is a big one, but we didn't know. CBS never told us. Survivor never aired it. Do you agree with this, or do you think that we should count this, even though it's kind of, as weird as it is, it's kind of hearsay? Because Omer is the only one who knows it.
It's really weird because we apply this to reward challenges that did not air. We don't count reward challenges that we didn't watch. Before this, I was all, let's not count it. I'm like still okay with that, but I would also be okay with us adding it just because it was a thing. It is why he got voted out. Like, it is true, but I mean, we'll talk separately about why they probably didn't air it, but I'm really okay with it either way. If you feel really strongly about not having it, I'm okay with not having it because that at least keeps the rules consistent. But it's just really weird because in my understanding, we've never had someone with like an actual real live idol slash advantage and it never be shown. We've had fakes, but never a real one. It's really weird.
Yeah, because I think this moment, and this has been a great season, do not get me wrong. Like, this is up there for me. I love this season. Really, no matter what happens here, I love it. This just shows not just how numb we've become to advantages, but how numb Survivor has become to advantages.
Yeah.
The fact that they could take one of the most popular players on the season, who's playing the best game, who I got endless texts about this week, how everybody was so happy he went home, not because they didn't like him, but because they thought it was setting up for an easy win for him. It just seemed like it was the obvious winner at this point. And they don't show him and Jonathan find this idol, but they tell us that they're buddies. So
yeah,
it's so weird to me that they ignored it. And to me, it just says they don't care anymore. Just like we don't care anymore. The advantages become numbing. They're putting fun spins on some of them, but when there's no fun spin, why are they going to show it? My biggest thing is this. Next year, I think we change this up for season 43. I think we put a caveat in that says, or like we really solidify the rules. Like however we go, however we decide to go with it. But this season and in this preseason, when we did the prop bet, we said if they don't show it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that we do not count this just the same way we don't count rewards that were won by that we never saw. And I think that's important because people might be sitting out in those reward challenges too. And we don't know. That could have been at an 11. And then we have 5 versus 5 and somebody sits out. Like, we don't know. Yeah. So I think we have to not do it for the sake of consistency. Sorry to anybody who has Omer as somebody in that spot, but Survivor should have shown it. And I'm really confused why they didn't. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wrap my mind around it, but I think ultimately it comes down to they've just gotten numb to it. Stop with the idol nullifier. It's not necessary, but there should have been a lot more drama around that. And now Omer's move with Drea and Mike really makes no sense in the world at all. I don't get it. Why in the world did he do this? He overthought it. He got cocky and he just overplayed.
Yeah, I mean, he explained why he did it. If he was able to pull it off at the final 5, it would have been amazing. So I'm with you. Let's not do it this season. I am down to change it for next season, though that requires us to pay attention to rewards that were not aired. But we'll talk about that in the next 4 months. I feel okay. I don't really know why they didn't show it. I do understand, like, it never got used, and if he had it, then he is even more likely to win this. But it is really interesting because I feel like early merge, I guess that this is actually something a fan said, but not him. We were lauding him like he doesn't have any advantages and he's pulling all these strings. And him having an idol nullifier like early on in the merge isn't as exciting as having it in the final 6 and the final 5. It is interesting. It feels like something that people actually, that's not true. Like, it was used on Dan pretty early on. But he like smartly held on to it. Like, it's something that, you know, he clearly knows that the big moves that people care about happen in final 6, 7, 6, and 5, but everything needs to go right. And he, like he said himself when he got voted out, he flew too close to the sun. If he gives that back to Mike and then he nullifies Mike out, we would be talking about him as the greatest player since Tony. That's just a really hard thing to pull off. So that being said, I get why he did that with Drea, because that would have taken out eventually 2 idols. But the problem is it would have happened over the course of like 3 tribal councils rather than 1.
Here's my question though. Did Omer need to do this to win the game? Absolutely not. And I think that's where it frustrates me a little bit. Not
Yeah.
frustrates me because ultimately, like, good for Omer trying to play his own game, whatever, make the big moves. But okay, if your resume has the New York Yankees, if and you've worked for the Yankees, you've worked for the Miami Heat, you don't also need to work for the Boston Celtics. Like, you don't need to. The other two are going to be fine if you want to go work for another sports team. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like he had so many things. He was trying to build such a resume that, like, I get it, but it's not necessary. And I think if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't try to do this, like if he doesn't try to make this huge move on Mike, he just votes out Drea with the idol, and you can use the nullifier if he needs to, all that. And that's it. Like he's in final 5 anyway, and there's no idol that can hurt him. So our final 6 without any idol, I don't know. I just don't think that this helped him, and I think he just overthought it.
But I think it's hard to, like, in the moment, we talked about this with Drea, but like in the moment, you're never not going to make a big move. And there's also, he thought that Mike was competition for him. So he had to take out Mike at some point. So I think, I don't know, I think the move would have been really cool if he was able to pull it off, but I still don't know why we didn't know about it. Like, I don't think, I'm really curious if other players knew. Like, I know that obviously Jonathan knew, and Jonathan kept that close, but I'm curious if anybody else knew.
If you want to go ahead and read that one, and I could be a good theory.
It makes no sense if he has a nullifier, so maybe they kept it out of the edit to keep things from getting to. I mean, it would have gotten really complicated. I still really complicated. Makes no sense. Like I don't think he wanted to nullify Drea. He wanted to nullify Mike for whatever reason. I think maybe he knew Drea was going to go anyway, and the only other idol that he knew about to date was Mike's. And as we're going to talk about in the final 5, there's not a lot of space left because there's 2 idols right now.
Yeah, there's 2 idols, and you got 2 really good challenge performers and Romeo. So there's not much space. Where would Omer have fit in had Mike been the one who's gone? Well, now there's only 1 idol. So what difference does it really make? But all right, Alexa, let's get into the power rankings here. And obviously we're going 1 to 5. So, or we're going to go 5 to 1, I mean. So we're going to go from first person we think is going to be voted out until the end. Can't play it safe anymore. Can't just be like, well, Mike has an idol, so he can't go at 5, so I'm just going to put him at 4 because Mike could go on to win the whole thing. So we're trying to do this 100% accurately. Who do you have as the first boot of the finale?
Okay, so we have been – so first of all, I guess I'll simplify it a little bit. Marianne's going to play her idol, and Mike's going to play his idol. I don't think Romeo is going to win immunity, but I also don't think that Romeo is going to go home. I do think that Romeo is going to make it to the final 3. So that unfortunately leaves our 2 big challenge performers, Lindsay and Jonathan. Are they tied right now at 2-2?
They are, yeah.
Challenges. So they're tied in challenges right now. I cannot imagine that both of them are going to be in the final 3 together. So to me, this feels like the final showdown between Jonathan and Lindsay. It's tied. There's no more space left. Jonathan has been the golden goose that Lindsay is chasing. He's not chasing her. He's chasing her because she is chasing him.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we are being set up for Lindsay to be the one to lose the final battle between the 2. I also think that they all see Lindsay as somebody who could 100% win, even though the vote didn't go her way last week. She's playing a really good game. Everybody really likes her. But I think that Lindsay is going to be the 5th person in 5th place for this.
So there's a couple interesting things that can happen with this. I also have Lindsay at 5. I think Lindsay is going to be the first person voted out of the finale. I think it just lines up with everything that happened. She just got duped in the last episode. It seemed like she got her win by beating Jonathan, and now her story's kind of over. However, if Mike or Marianne were to win immunity, and then they play their idol for somebody else, either like I could see Mike playing it for Jonathan. I could see Marianne playing it for maybe even Lindsay, even though she just backstabbed Lindsay. Start playing a little bit here and say, well, maybe I can keep Lindsay in the game, but you also don't want to give her a bigger resume, whatever. That's the only thing that could throw a wrench in this. If Mike or Marianne or somehow Romeo win immunity, I think they decide to keep Jonathan, not Lindsay. I don't think anybody's scared of losing to Jonathan out of Mike. I don't think Mike or Marianne are scared of losing to Jonathan. I think they're both scared of losing to Lindsay. I think that Lindsay going home puts the final nail in Jonathan's coffin and confirms that he cannot win the game. I think he could have beaten Lindsay because he could have sat there and said, all she wanted to do the whole season was beat me, and I beat her in more things than she did.
Yeah.
I don't see him having enough of an argument over Mike or Marianne. And I think Mike and Marianne know that. And I think Mike wants to go to the end with Jonathan, you know, the macho, old school, whatever. I think Marianne wants to go to the end with Jonathan because she can beat the hell out of the guy. So I think Lindsay is the first boot here, but she could still win immunity. Anybody else wins immunity, Lindsay is going home. It doesn't just have to be Jonathan. But but anybody else, Lindsay's gone. If Lindsay wins, she's safe. Jonathan probably goes. But I'm saying Lindsay at number 5. I don't see her getting past this first boot.
I don't see it either. And it's a real bummer because she has had we're already talking about her as if she's gone. Not that that's the case. She has just really been awesome this season. And especially she's had a really cool ramp up the past few weeks. It feels very Erica-esque. If she finds a way to get to that final 3, she, I think, is the only person I think who could beat her would be Marianne at this point. So I think if Lindsay's there, she's got a really good chance. It's just really going to be hard for her to get there.
Agreed. And John Millsap just said, I feel Lindsay's edit is more in line with a fire-making loser. Maybe, but how is she getting to fire? I just think, in my opinion, in my world of how Wednesday night's going to go, Jonathan is going to win both immunities. It's just going to come down to, does Jonathan think he needs to go and make fire in order to have a chance to win? Because I think he's competitive enough that he would go and do that. I don't think he understands the game enough to maybe necessarily know that he needs to do that, but I do think he would go and do that. I think he's winning both. That's what I'm kind of basing this on. However,
Lindsay very well could win this one.
She could very well win.
That's how she gets to the final 4.
Yeah, she could.
Her winning 2, unless Jonathan, if she wins, then I 100% think it's Jonathan who goes at 5.
Agreed.
And then it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah. Now we get to the final 4 now. So we both think it's going to be Marianne, Mike, and Jonathan, and Romeo. And Alexa is hopefully going to get through this.
Oh my God.
Drink some water. But hey, we have the same glasses. IKEA.
Love it.
There you go. But this is what we think the final 4 is going to be. This is where I think it does actually get complicated. And there's no more idols. And there's a couple variations. And I just kind of want to talk through what's going through in my head. I want to kind of see if you agree with these scenarios, disagree with these scenarios, because this is really the only interesting part of this episode, in my opinion. Once this is over, we know who's going to win. It's done. It's going to be Mike or Marianne. It's done. So here's my thing. At Final 4, if Jonathan wins, Jonathan, I think, would take Romeo, putting Mike versus Marianne. However, I could see Jonathan also taking Mike because he likes Mike, and then putting Marianne versus Romeo, not seeing either one of them as a threat to really win the game, and say, okay, whoever makes fire, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go toe to toe with Mike, and then Marianne beats Romeo. Marianne's now the winner. But I could also see Jonathan going in against somebody. Now, I forget exactly how this shapes up, because if he decides to go against somebody, does he choose who he's facing, or does the person who he gives immunity to choose who he's facing? Because that was a weird gray area back when Chris did it, where it was I'm going to give up my necklace and I'm going to go in and make fire against Devins. And it's okay, but did Julie want you to go make fire against Devins? That was a weird thing. So does he pick or not? Because if he does, I think he's trying to go against Romeo or Marianne because he thinks he can beat them. If he doesn't, I think the person throws him in against Mike and says, good, one of you is going to go home. I know I'm sitting in the end either against Marianne or Romeo, because I don't think Romeo maybe necessarily is even thinking of Marianne as the winner of this.
Yeah, I think the winner of the immunity challenge gets to pick. I don't know if that's actually right, but that's what Chris did. He gave it to Julie and then said, I'm going to compete against Devin. So maybe I don't know what the semantics are. Maybe you say it and then you give it. I think that Jonathan won't give up immunity, because I think, and I agree with this philosophy throughout, you win immunity. You earned your way to the final 3. I don't think that he thinks that would be an extra resume booster for him to win the fire making challenge. I think for him, and I would apply this to myself too, you win that final immunity challenge. To me, that should be more impressive than winning the fire making challenge.
Agree.
Because that final immunity challenge is always so hard. I think I agree he would probably take Romeo. I'm with you in him taking Mike, but I think he is smarter than I and many people lead him to are led to believe.
Mhm.
I think he knows that he's really about Mike and they have a lot in common, but I think he knows that he shouldn't take Mike to the end. So with that, I think he then assuming he wins, he puts Mike and Marianne against each other. And I think whoever wins that, regardless of the fact that they won the fire making challenge, wins the game.
That's what I think too. That's my most likely scenario. However, we also know that sometimes in these last challenges, they're big, they're whatever, and then there's a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And my thinking is this. Jonathan's the favorite in every challenge he competes in. But we saw Sophie beat Ozzy in Final Four of South Pacific, right? To get there, get rid of Ozzy, and win the game over Coach and Albert. Who, Albert, by the way, I just found out works at the same school I do.
Whoa.
Interesting, huh? But anyway, just quick side note.
That's crazy.
What's concerning to me is, and what makes this the most interesting part of the episode, if Marianne wins, she's taking Romeo. Mike and Jonathan are going against each other. If Mike wins, he's taking Romeo. Marianne and Jonathan are going against each other. If Romeo wins, he's probably taking Marianne, and Mike and Jonathan are going against each other. In all of these scenarios, either Mike or Jonathan is making fire. How good is Marianne at making fire if she has to do it? I don't know. But
apparently she made fire last episode. You and I both missed it because that's something that I'm just going to miss. Yeah. Apparently she made fire. But I think none of those clips ever mean anything. I feel like it's always just whatever they show right during the episode.
So that's where it's weird, though, because I think Romeo is like, I will go ahead and say right now, Romeo is locked in at 3 for me. Like, there is no doubt about it, 100% chance Romeo is going to finish 3rd on this season. Like, that's just how I feel. Maybe somehow an idle play gets him out at 5, but I just see Romeo at 3rd. He's not going to get any votes when he gets there, but he's going to get there. Good for him. Go get your paycheck, get out. But this Final Four fire-making challenge is throwing me off because Romeo's not going to be in it. I don't see any way that Romeo's in it unless Jonathan takes Mike for some reason or if Mike takes Jonathan, but I don't think that's going to happen. So if that's the case, I have to assume that in most of these scenarios, it's Jonathan versus Mike. I would think the firefighter, or I'm sorry, Mike is in this in most scenarios. I would think the firefighter has an advantage over whoever he's going against. But I don't know how we get a Marianne win if Jonathan wins immunity, doesn't give it up, takes Romeo to the end, and then Marianne and Mike make fire against each other. Mm-hmm. How do we get the Marianne win? And I'm assuming it's a Marianne win just because of last week and because Mike's the only other one with the edit to win. And at this point, like, I feel like it's Marianne's to win. So I'm putting Mike at 4. And I'm saying he somehow loses. The fireman puts out his fire instead of keeping it going. And I got Mike getting 4th place.
Yeah, I that's exactly where I have Mike too. So we're going to have the exact same ranking. I think that Marianne gets to the win in a couple places. I think she, like you said, maybe she wins this final immunity challenge. There's also people in the chat are talking about, I guess this is more for Final 5 than Final 4, but I forgot about this. Erica got an advantage in that final challenge. So there's always still one other thing that floats around. And so either Marianne wins the immunity challenge and just stays and pits Jonathan and Mike against each other in the fire making challenge, or Marianne wins fire making. I just think there's no rhyme or reason to winning the fire making challenge. Every single year we're like, does she know what fire is? Like, we never, because that's just not something that's even remotely shown in the show. And we are people who stare at edits all day, and still that just is not something that I think anybody really tracks. So I think it's that. I think she very well could be good at fire. We've also been seeing a bit of a like growth arc from her, but a growth arc in the sense that like she could win it. And I don't know. Maybe the 21-year-old knows how to make fire. Who knows?
24. Remember, we keep getting her age so wrong. We're
You know,
both so
she
bad.
gotta go on Survivor. I'm like, she's 12, but that's
I
not.
know she's not actually old enough. Her mom is out there holding her hand the whole time, giving her permission to play.
Yeah.
So here's my thinking. If Marianne wins immunity at Final Four, right? And I'm sorry, but I'm looking like 100% edit at this point. Like Marianne just had the move of the season. We know she's making it past Final Five. She's probably going to play an idol. I don't think she's our fallen angel. Like I think we're going to get a really strange winner here, or at least not strange, but like a different kind of winner. Marianne, we've never seen anybody who like Marianne play this game. Like, we really haven't. At least not who's also this good at the game, and as loud and fun as she is. So my thing is, if Marianne wins and she takes Romeo and Jonathan and Mike make fire against each other, who wins that fire? I think Mike wins that fire.
Mike versus who?
Mike versus Jonathan.
Really?
I think Mike would beat him. I like, for some reason, and like I understand Jonathan like pretty much lives on a beach and like he does all that fun stuff and like he owns his own beach place, but Mike spent his whole life around fires, and I just think that like, if you're getting your one shot in your late 50s, like you got to think like this is your one shot. We just had, unfortunately, Clay Jordan passed away yesterday, runner-up for Thailand at 66. Not very old. Like 66 years old is not very old. And he just passed away. Mike is 9, 7, 8 years younger than that. You don't know what's going to happen in your 50s, 60s, 70s when it comes to health. Like things can just start to go wrong. So you're looking at this is my one chance. You're not 25, 26, 27 saying, if I don't succeed this time, maybe they'll bring me back or maybe I'll get another opportunity, something like that. This guy's got to be prepped to make fire.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm talking myself out of putting him in the 4th spot. But I have a hard time. This is my only other scenario, okay? And this is the one that I think could happen. But wow, would that be a cluster cuss? Jonathan wins immunity, takes Romeo. Mike faces Marianne in fire, and Mike wins. And now we have a final 3 of Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo. Is that actually the most likely final 3 in this finale? And we're just overthinking it because we are both convinced Marianne is going to win after last week? Because if that's the final 3, I just lost my headphones, but who wins then?
I actually like that final 3 because it, to us, that feels like more competitive. Because I think if Marianne or Lindsay gets to the end, one of them is winning it, just no questions asked. But Jonathan versus Mike, we've been like, Drea was like, Mike, if you get to the end, you're going to win. Jonathan, I think, isn't getting any credit or any respect from the players, but we've never, as fans, we've never seen somebody like Jonathan get to the end before. And I would just love to hear how he pitches himself. I don't think the players would respect it versus a game like Marianne's, but Jonathan and Mike played similar games in the sense of, actually, I would actually say Mike probably played more emotionally than Jonathan did.
For sure.
So I do think that they actually have some contrast there, but I think we've just never had like 2 big dudes other than like Ozzy and Yule in final 3.
And I think in that situation, Mike would ultimately win.
Yeah.
So Mike wins, Jonathan 2nd, Romeo 3rd, Marianne 4. So it's not Romeo and Lindsay that I'm having a hard time moving around. It's where do Jonathan, Mike, and Marianne fit in this whole thing? Because not for nothing, until last week, Mike had been getting the best edit. Like, yes, he had some dodo moments and blah, blah, blah. But Mike, it feels like Mike's story on this season until last week. Omer had some story moments. But even when Omer was like kind of heckling Mike, not, that's strong words, but whatever. When he's kind of like poking fun at Mike, it still felt like it was Mike's story. And maybe Mike's growth arc is that despite not being a perfect Survivor player, despite not being the best, he got to the end. He did what he had to do. He made the connections he needed to make, and now he gets to win.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's him who ends up winning the game. But he won't beat Marianne if Marianne's sitting in the final 3. And after last week, I'm just like, man, she got that. She's going to have the final 5 moment where people are probably going to try to throw. They might try to throw votes at her. They might not. But she's going to have an idol, so she's safe. And now it's between her and Mike. Granted, Survivor doesn't rig the thing. So if for some reason the final three just happens to be Mike, Jonathan, and Romeo. That's who the final three is. And somebody's got to win in that. And that person is going to probably be Mike. And I think that would disappoint some people, that final three. But I agree with you. I think that's the most competitive final three we could get in this finale.
What do you think? Let's go backwards now. What if Lindsay wins the battle? Lindsay wins immunity. Jonathan goes home, final five. Then you have
and now we're at final four with Lindsay, Romeo, Mike, and Marianne.
Yeah, which that would be crazy. And that would be pretty competitive too. I don't think there's ever a world where Lindsay, Mike, and Marianne are in a final three. That would be the most unlikely, but also the coolest final three.
Romeo would have to win. Marianne would have to win and decide to take Lindsay with her or something. Like, it would make sense. And Romeo's not going to beat anybody in fire at this point.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, what if Lindsay's in the final four and Jonathan loses?
I mean, then I think Lindsay's the favorite at final four immunity. I think if she wins, she takes Romeo, Marianne versus Mike. And then I think likely you're Mike, Lindsay, Romeo. And I think Mike or Lindsay could win in that situation. I really do. I think that you could go either way with that one. I think Lindsay would probably eke it out, but I think that could go either way.
Yeah. And Lindsay is getting like the edit of the final four fire making loser, but I also can't. She's like, all we know about Lindsay is that she's such a competitor, and like her losing fire making just doesn't feel
right. No.
Maybe she wins. You know what? Lindsay, this is what I could see happening. Lindsay wins both immunities. Lindsay gives up the necklace and then loses in fire making.
But then who would she lose to in fire making?
Yeah, I guess
like Mike
or Marianne.
Yeah. So the more we talk about it, like based on, I have Marianne in spot one. Like
same.
I don't have much drama there. But in order for her to win, I think she has to win immunity at final four and beat Jonathan. And then I think it's Jonathan versus Mike and fire. And I think Mike probably wins that. However, I have Mike at 4. So am I wrong on putting Mike at 4? And now I'm overthinking it. Now I'm just talking in circles. But am I wrong at putting Mike at 4? And I should put Jonathan at 4, Romeo at 3, Mike at 2, if I'm assuming Marianne's going to win. Because really, me putting Mike at 4 doesn't make sense with who we have left in the game and the scenarios that would need to play out. For Mike to go at 4 with the final 4 that we have, that would mean Jonathan would need to win immunity, take Romeo, and Mike lose to Marianne, or Marianne win immunity, take Romeo, and Mike lose to Jonathan. Now, Mike could lose to Jonathan for sure.
Yeah.
In which case, Jonathan gets second, whatever. But in reality, it's probably more the opposite, right? Like, it seems like maybe Mike should be the one who wins the fire-making challenge.
Right, and we both have him losing. I might switch mine just for the sake of us having the exact same final 5.
Well, what if I want to switch mine? I'm in second place. I need it more than you.
I'm gonna put that. That is true. I'm gonna have Jonathan lose the final 5 challenge. I'm gonna have
final 5 challenge. You're gonna have him lose.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my tinfoil hat of Jonathan loses the final. Lindsay wins both immunity challenges.
Okay.
And then Lindsay also gives up her necklace.
You're putting Lindsay at 4.
I don't know.
It's hard. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think it's predictable once we get through
final 5. Like that
final
first
5, but not even final 5. Like, once Lindsay or Jonathan is gone, now we get to final 4, and it comes down to who wins that final 4 challenge. Once the final 4 challenge is won, and we see who's making fire, Marianne's sitting in final 3. We know she wins.
Yeah.
If Marianne's making fire, now there's some drama. If Marianne doesn't make it to final 3 and we get Lindsay, Mike, and Romeo, or Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo, or Jonathan, Lindsay, and Romeo somehow, holy shit, that's pretty interesting.
That'd be wild.
But now I'm starting to think, I've talked myself into it. I'm going to put Jonathan at 4.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep, who do I have 5? I'm going to keep Lindsay at 5. Say she loses. And I'm going to put Jonathan at 4 because I think he's facing Mike. And I had thought about this a lot. That's the crazy thing. Like, for a lot of these, I haven't thought about them that much. I've just kind of been like, oh, that person seems like they're on the bottom. That's who it's going to be. But like since Wednesday night's episode, I've pretty much sat here and I'm like, I'm only a point out of first. I want to beat Alex Trias, get out of my, get off my lawn.
My
And
Alex Trias is rapidly taking notes right
well,
now.
it's annoying too because Alex Trias could just do the exact same thing as me and he auto wins because I can't go back on him and he knows what I'm doing. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage and I might steal his buff and never give it to him, but whatever. But I thought about this a lot, and for some reason, I didn't really think about the fact that if Marianne is going to win the game of Survivor, Jonathan and Mike have to make fire against each other, and Mike is probably going to win that fire making challenge because Jonathan is not going to take Marianne to the final three, no matter how stupid people might think Jonathan is. And I don't think he's a stupid guy at all. I just think he's hungry and learning the game, and he's not as good at the game as other people in terms of a strategic standpoint. He's not taking Marianne to the end after she does the Omar vote and then plays an idol at Final Five. He's not doing that. There's no way. That would be insane. So for her to get to the end, she has to win immunity and take Romeo. And then Mike plays Jonathan, and Marianne's not going to go make fire. She doesn't need to. And I just don't see the final three of Mike, Jonathan, and Romeo happening. That has not been what we're told is going to happen this season. Like, that would be wild. Yeah, I would love it. That would probably annoy a lot of people, but I would love it. But I think this is Marianne's time. I think we're getting our first Black female winner since Vesepia. I think it's happening after last week. So I'm changing as well. And if you want to go back to yours, you can, but I'm putting Jonathan at 4.
Okay, so can you go top to bottom? Not as inspiration, just because I can't remember where you're at.
So I am putting Marianne at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I am putting Mike now at number 2. I changed him and Jonathan, and I'm putting Romeo at 3, and then Jonathan 4, Lindsay 5. Between Jonathan and Mike, if they sit next to Marianne at the end, I do think that they actually get votes at the end. I just want to say that. Like, they might not get a lot.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like a Deshaun instance where Xander and Romeo both get 0. Jonathan / Mike at least get 1 because they will get each other's vote. I think Jonathan and Mike vote for each other pretty much no matter what. And there's nobody to vote for Romeo. Dre's not going to vote for Romeo if Marianne's sitting there. She's going to vote for Marianne. Like, get out of here. Chanel's going to vote for Marianne. Roxroy's going to vote for Marianne. Like, they're not going to vote for Romeo.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a 1, 2, 3 this season. I don't think we're getting like a clean sweep or like the Earl or anything like that. So that's where I'm at. I came into this really thinking Jonathan was my number 2, and it just made sense. But I cannot get over the fact that Mike would be the one losing the fire making challenge. Why is that happening? And realistically, there's a better chance that the final 3 is Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo than there is that Mike is going to lose the fire making challenge.
Jonathan, Mike the firefighter, finally fights the final fire.
Finally fights the final fire.
All right, I'm going to end with Marianne 1, Mike 2, Romeo 3, Lindsay 4, Jonathan 5.
Okay, so we're still a little bit different, but you also came in.
Yeah, I switched
with Mike at 4, Jonathan at 2, and Lindsay at 5. So you switched a lot too.
Yeah, all this. I agree with you. I think this final 5 vote is the biggest one, which is unfortunate because it's the one that's going to be the quickest.
What the problem with this episode is it gets progressively less interesting from the way we're seeing it go.
Yeah.
At final 5, that's an interesting vote. Final 4, it'll be interesting to see who wins immunity. After that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
After that, because if Marianne wins, then it's okay. Who's going to win fire between Mike and Jonathan, but they're not going to win the game. And if Jonathan or Mike win, well, then it could be a little interesting if we can get Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo in the final 3. But if Marianne gets into that final 3, this isn't interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. This is going to be a great episode.
So here you go. This is behind the scenes, Alexa. From John, I have been told to inform you that Alex sent me his power rankings before you started discussing them, and that he didn't copy you, and you just chose the same order as him.
Does Alex know that John is telling you this? Because now you are so advantaged that you get to change. Well, I guess Alex can change too.
I'm not changing anything. No, I getting that information. But hey, here's the situation. Now, though, whoever's in third, I guess, who's in third?
Congratulations.
Forrest DeGroat now actually has the advantage. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud, but you know what? Now it's all out there, baby. Everybody knows mine. Everybody knows I can't beat Alex, and now I'm pissed, and I should change it, but I'm not going to because I'm not like that. So I should just stuck with my damn Jonathan at 2. But anyway, whatever.
Congratulations, Alex.
Congratulations, Alex. We'll send you your buff by carrier pigeon. You'll get it in 2 years. But anyway,
I'm so excited to watch this finale. I'm so sad we're at the finale, but we are in for a very exciting 3 hours.
Yes, we are. This is going to be good. And you know what? Even if we get to the end and Marianne becomes it's an easy final 3 for her or something like that, or even if we somehow get a Romeo win, we're going to get a different kind of winner this year. And that's fun. And I look forward to that little weird after the, I don't think, like, let's say this goes the way we both think and we go Marianne, Mike, Romeo. Mike and Romeo aren't going to be like Deshaun and Xander were last year. I think that during that final tribal council thing, there will be more positivity during that like pizza and beer type thing, because they're going to be like, you know what? Like, I'm happy for Marianne. Like, Mike's going to be happy and Romeo's going to be like, what was I supposed to do, Jeff?
Yeah. Romeo's like, I'm literally dead.
Yeah. So.
I also, another thing that's been coming out of Omar's exit press is I think it will be good because I think people are always just in better moods when the season's over, but Ponderosa sounds like it was unhealthy.
Yeah.
So maybe they all hate each other, but
Hai and Omar hate each other. This is crazy.
Yeah, there's some drama.
They like despise each other. Like Hai's tweets weren't subliminal.
Yeah, Hai's tweets were a lot, which is
I'm very curious to see what that's all about.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get the opportunity to talk to both of them.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we are going to be live at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time, ready for a late one. So tune in for that. Right after this, we are going to record our 2, our May retrospective and our May Q&A. So can't complain. We're doing them 10 days before the end of the month, which is truly a feat.
So if you want to do Q&A, if you want to get a question in, do it now because we're
literally do it right now. Yeah. But everyone, thank you so much. Become a patron. We're going to be putting out a lot of good stuff this summer too. And we'll see y'all on Wednesday. Love you too, Sanju.
Bye.